Hey everyone, today is the Teaching Positive Behavior day 3 of the class, and for today we just took a little bit lighter approach in terms of new content. Really the focus of today is to be examining how applying the content of the Big Five and 5 to 1 and some of those skills we've talked about earlier applying that to real kids, real situations, and how that's working out for people. So just like we're talking about is the main purpose of this is for cognitive load purposes. And so we don't want to build in so many new things that people don't get comfortable with the real foundations of the model we're teaching. We don't want to overload these processes and kind of skim over the top, but really go in depth. And so what this graphic really depicts is that we have our environmental input, and then we get it through our senses, visual, auditory, touch, smell, those types of things. And then it goes into our working memory. And our working memory, if we rehearse and we make it kind of stick there, then it goes into long-term memory. And so the way we do that is not by providing so much sensory overload and providing a lot of practice, a lot of rehearsal, so we can put it into long-term memory. And so these skills can become second nature and become really easier. And so far the teachers in the class are just doing an awesome job. They come with great stories. They come with saying, hey, I tried this out, or what would I do in this situation? And that's going to be an ongoing part of the class as we build. But again, we're staying with the Big Five. So I asked the teachers, how's it going to reinforce, redirect, reframe, ignore, and model? And those are cornerstones to any behavior problem we have, and any teaching of behavior, independence, any pro-social thing that we want to do, 21st century skills, they're all linked in there. So we really need to be solid on those Big Five principles. And we're going to go in, we're going to examine a lot of those things, and teachers have brought great stories, and I brought personal stories to just show how powerful these strategies are. I mean, when we come from a place that's not punishment based and we use a lot of these strategies, what we're finding is that they can have drastic impacts in terms of placement for students, in terms of how they respond to different teachers within classes. It can be very, very drastic at times. And so we talk about a lot of those situations and cases. And if you have someone that is a behavior specialist in your school, or you just, you have somebody that's really good at it, or you have certain teachers that are really good at it, please talk about it. Please talk about how powerful these things are. I mean, if you're feeling still like struggling with a kid, looking more at it as if it is a puzzle that we just haven't found out what kind of support they need yet. Looking at it from that lens, as opposed to how do I control this kid, really flipping that around. If you can do that, you can find that very simple things are very powerful. And it's Dr. Seuss's birthday, and one of his quotes is that sometimes our questions are very complex, but our answers are very simple. And sometimes that's the case. Sometimes it seems like, wow, this is a big complex problem, but the answer to that problem is a really simple one. We've had some drastic changes of just changing bedtime, of just changing those positive to negative ratios, of just reducing some demands, keeping expectations high, but just reducing some demands and putting some other supports in there. You can see just really drastic changes in kids' behavior, and it's pretty impressive to see. So the new content for today is how to teach and promote positive behavior. These are things that you're going to see in positive PBIS um, curriculums or PBIS supports, safe and civil schools reports, collaborative problem solving stuff. It's all in there. But really looking at, when we look at essential principles to instruction about teaching behavior, start with a review of 3 to 5 expectations. And so just go over if your school has, be respectful, be responsible, and be safe as your 3 main rules. Make sure you have expectations within those rules. And so transitions should really be a quick review of expectations. If it's reading time or whatever that is, you should have a quick review of all those expectations. One example is, so it's reading time. Maybe my school has be responsible, be respectful, be safe, but during that reading time I might have specific expectations that I'm going to review and I'm going to expect. So in that reading group, I might have do your best reading, respect others, and sit square in your chair. And then that allows me to provide the language of when a kid is misbehaving. I can say, all right, sit square in your chair, everybody check it. And I see a lot of teachers do that with body basics on the carpet, those types of things. But it's important to, before every class, review the expectations. It doesn't need to take very long, but kids will get to know them fast. And then when you're about to teach a reading lesson, you can say, all right, guys, name the 3 rules. Sit square in your chair, be respectful, do your best reading. All right, now we're ready to go. Just a quick review, turning that short-term into long-term memory so they always know what's expected. Make demands that elicit positive behaviors. And so when, instead of saying, stop doing that or be quiet or those types of things, make a demand that elicits a positive behavior. And so have it in a positive light of, walk in the hallway or do your best reading or those types of things around. Elicit that positive behavior, because if you make a demand to elicit positive behavior, what you can do then is right when that kid engages in that behavior that you demanded, you can reinforce that, you can praise that, you can give them feedback that that's what we want to see. Have an incentive system. Have it as a class and have it as an individual. And so it's really important that kids have a class incentive, because then they all work together to achieve a common goal. It's also important that kids have individual incentive systems so that they can have their own accountability in their own learning. And so having that combination and those class incentives, every kid in that class should receive that incentive. And so if you think about it, like if you're on a basketball team or you're on a football team, if you win a championship, everybody gets a ring, even the janitor, even the ball boy, even the towel guy. They all get a ring. And that's because they have all contributed to that success. No matter how difficult it has been, no matter how many problems behavior they've had, they're part of that class and they're contributing to that class reaching that goal. And so it's important for them to receive that incentive. Now, they may not receive the individual incentive, but as a class, that should be part of it. Provide frequent practice during calm times. So that goes again what we are talking about last time around. Don't teach the behavior when kids are escalated, but provide practice when it's calm. And I gave the example of when we've taught kids flexibility, how to have flexible thinking. And usually what we'll do is we can just sit around, or we might be doing something else, and we'll play a little game, and I'll say, whatever I say, you have to say okay. And so we start out by, I just say truthful things. I say, the color of your locker is blue, and you say okay, and then we go through that whole deal, and then I start telling lies. And for some kids that's really hard. It's really hard if I know that is wrong, I need to say something about it, and that's a good skill to have, but sometimes we just need to say okay and move on. And so we're teaching them that flexible thinking piece. So it can be those, but I'm not going to try and have them do flexible thinking right away when they're already escalated, or when I've corrected them, or because that just turns into an argument. And so giving them those skills and then matching those skills onto real life situations is the way to go there. Pre-correct. Set kids up for success. If you know that a kid is going to fail at something, if you know they come into the class every day and they're mad and they throw down their book and you know that, then what you want to do before that is you want to, when they come into the class, be very positive. You might even remove some things to make it positive, but you pre-correct for that. And you might say an expectation. If you know a kid, if they have multiple choices, they're going to make the wrong choice. Make it so it's so easy to just make the right choice, and then you can praise those things. And so make sure you use that tactic. Monitor independent practice. That can't be said enough. It's just like in teaching. It's I model, and then we do it together, we do it together, we do it together. Same thing, behavior. I model, we do it together, we do it together, we do it together. And then independent practice, you're going to go out in the real world, or we're going to fade off into the real world, and it's your time to practice those skills independently. Make sure you monitor that and provide feedback on their goals and those expectations you have. And so kids really know how they're doing, because if you don't monitor that, then they get out and all that support has been lost. Examine the difficulty of work. A lot of behavior problems are a result of kids. It's just too difficult. And so examine the difficulty of that work. And that doesn't always mean that, okay, it's too difficult, so I need to give them less problems. It may mean that it's too difficult, so I may need to spend more time teaching in the we do phase. We may need to do it over and over and over again before I turn them to the independent phase. I may need to model it more. I may need to provide a graphic organizer, or I may need to provide some kind of other scaffolding support that allows kids to be successful. But that's one thing you got to keep in mind, is the difficulty of work can cause a whole host of behavior problems. Number 8 is have focused learning. A tight and a loose. You focused all day long for 8 hours a day. You just can't. You can't be focused for a lot of that time. And so make sure that when you want engagement, when you need engagement, when you're making clear points about when you need engagement, that should be tight. When there's times to be loose, let kids be loose. Let yourself be loose. Don't try and control every little thing. It's okay if you let things be loose, but then you bring it back tight, and you have good cueing systems to bring that back tight. Once you do that, you can bring it back tight and really provide all of that support. But really having targeted focus of, now I need you to focus, now you can relax. Now I need you to focus, now you can relax. Examine engagement and intensify instruction through responding and using clear wording. This one is, use clear wording, use clear cues so kids know when to respond, they know how to respond. That when we're talking about that cognitive load piece, they really need to know when and how to respond. Needs to be second nature, so that they can free up more cognitive ability or more cognitive energy for concentrating on that new content or that skill that you're teaching, instead of concentrating on, how do I raise my hand? What should I do in this situation? I'm not really sure where to go. I'm not really sure what to do. I'm spending more time thinking about that than I am on the content. And so that's really, really important, to have clear routines, to have clear cues, to have clear wording, so they can just focus on the content that's being taught. And then, use some friendly competition. And really what this means is not competition in the sense of, let's see who can get this done the fastest, but, that more of that internal competition around setting goals. Have kids set their own goals, or set those goals for the kids, but make sure that they're tracking towards something. They're always doing something towards something, and so they're receiving that feedback in how they do. So they're not just going to school every day, doing their work, going home. That's not achieving a goal, or it's not achieving a purpose. Even kids that are small, kids that are kindergarten, first grade, second grade, no matter what the grade, they should be receiving feedback, and they should be receiving meaningful feedback and having meaningful goals. And sometimes that can be hard, but if you can streamline that process to where all kids are doing that and they're having purposeful learning, then you can really have some really exciting things happen. So what we did in the class is that right now we showed Anita Archer active engagement clip, and we looked at those principles on that slide, those teaching strategies, and we saw how she used cueing, and we saw how she used routines and redirections and modeling and all these things. We put all that together. We also got a clip of Chris Biffle from Power Teaching, or Whole Brain Teaching as it's now called, and we looked at him, and he does all the same things, and we compared the two, and really what we did was we compared those two people, Anita Archer being an older woman, and Chris Biffle being a younger man, and so and their energy levels are different. They're both high energy, but the way they manifest themselves is very different. And so the purpose of that is really looking at that no matter what age you are, no matter what your personality is, you can be high energy, you can be positive, you can have clear cueing, you can have active engagement. And so really what you want to do is harness who yourself is, but don't downplay yourself in the fact that, I see this guy come in and he's high energy, and he has all these kids engaged doing those things, and I can't do that. He's young, and he's young and he's male, or whatever those things are. Really, you have to know that you have those skills too, and they may not be the same thing. It's not do exactly what he does, but the principles are the same. And bring your personality to it, and don't be afraid to bring your personality to it. I was telling some colleagues just the other day that I used to say, it should be 5 praise statements to 1 correction, and teachers would tell me, man, that's really, really hard, and I'd say, yes, it's extremely hard, and I've kind of backed off that a little bit now, and I've said, do 5 positive interactions to every correction. And really what that does, I believe, is it loosens up that definition, because it's just about having more positive interactions than it is negative interactions with kids. And so it kind of loosens that up, and you don't have to say a praise statement, but give a thumbs up, give good eye contact, pat a kid on the back, or walk by and just give him a high five, or when he walks in, you can just laugh and smile. I mean, smile is a big one, and I think when we just say praise statements, teachers feel like they just have to say praise statements instead of you can really be yourself, just a good, nice, positive person. And so keep that in mind, and this slide right here is where do you want to go, and that was opened up to the group around, I can go through some of these things, and we can skim over some of these big topics, but I wanted to give it to the group in that let's do some very specific things so that we can go really in depth into them, and give you some information that you might not otherwise get if you're just in a regular behavioral course. I mean, we can talk about functions, and we can talk about things like that, and interventions, and things like that, but really what I'd like to do is I'd like to move it towards some of those fine-tuned things in the future, and so and continue to build these foundational skills. And I'm hearing a lot of great things from teachers. They really like them, and they're really excited about them. So thanks everybody again. We'll come by with day 4 through day 10. But check out Beyond the Bell. Again, that's just it's a site where I get a lot of stuff from parenting research. I get a lot of stuff from classroom research. I get a lot of stuff from all kinds of positive behavior support literature. And I bring it all in there, and just along with some other fun stuff, and it's really neat to look at how early intervention stuff just it really kind of hits the nail on the head on how to create independent kids that have some great positive behaviors. And so check it out. Follow the page, please, and yeah, thank you.